There's a quiet kind of despair that comes from being told, directly or indirectly, that you are incompatible with the cure. That if advice doesn't land, or that the method makes you feel worse than you did before, that there must be something wrong with you. But systems don't only fail for you because they are defective. Sometimes systems are just misread. And when the nervous system has spent years anticipating threats, managing risks, and maintaining composure under pressure, generic solutions such as affirmations, journaling, or meditation don't soothe it, they confuse it. Affirmations bounce in a body that's already in survival, and rest feels unsafe if vigilance is felt necessary. This isn't resistance, this is just intelligence operating under different rules. So when we understand this, then we can think less like, I am broken and I am incompatible with the cure, and more like, okay, so what is it that my system requires for me to regulate myself? Sit with that for a moment, because if you've ever tried to do anything to improve yourself or to make yourself feel better, like take part in affirmations, like try journaling or meditation, and it's left you feeling worse than you did before, then this is for you. A lot of self-help advice comes with a really important presumption that your system feels safe enough to receive it, but what if it doesn't? Because what if the nervous system learned that being alert was survival, or that being critical kept you sharp, or that disappearing was safer than being seen? Then things that are supposed to help can leave you feeling wrong or irritated, or it can just feel downright impossible, and that leaves you feeling stuck, and you start to come to the conclusion that I must be the problem, but that's not necessarily the case. I made the example, affirmations, so let's talk about that for a moment. If you are extremely self-critical, then affirmations are not going to feel comforting for you. Instead, they're going to feel like lies that your body doesn't consent to. I am safe in a system that sincerely just does not feel safe and is built on vigilance is going to feel like someone's trying to get you to take off your armour mid-battle. The nervous system might push back on accepting affirmations initially, not because it's negative or because you're broken or because there's something inherently wrong with you, but because it's programmed to protect you, and the defense systems, the belief systems, aka the line of defense that has kept you operating, is being threatened, and therefore your integrity, your foundations are being threatened. So if you're finding yourself, coming to take part in affirmations, writing down, I am safe, I am beautiful, I am clever, but actually you've just failed your last exam and you find it really hard to maintain friendships and you're feeling really rocky and in just an uncomfortable place at the moment, then saying those things aloud might not necessarily change your reality, and it might not necessarily make you feel any more empowered than you felt to begin with. And that's, as I say, it's because sometimes they don't feel like truth. So sometimes the kindest thing and the kindest alternative that we can offer ourselves, therefore, is neutral affirmations. This is really hard, but I'm going to try to find a solution. Or this is really hard, but I am going to try to be as kind to myself as possible. Literally, just stating like the obvious, like just stating your intent. Like, I'm in a difficult place right now, but that doesn't mean that it'll be forever. And it's things like this, then that starts to give you power, that starts to give you control back over your life and over the atmosphere that is within you, because then you can start to frame your existence. Imagine that. If you could start to narrate it from a place of compassion, if you could start to narrate your day from a place of genuine confidence, then your days would start to look a hell of a lot better. Like when you first start journaling, it can feel like opening up a can of worms or pulling at a string and you don't know what's next to unravel, and it can sometimes feel like the problem starts to get bigger than it did before you acknowledged it. And that's because, and I spoke about this in my last video, about the idea of the shadow, and just to give it a funky name, the idea that the shadow is the parts of us that go unintegrated. So for example, like when I worked in hospitality, this would happen all the time, and someone would just be rude, like someone would just be mean, but you don't have a chance to even just acknowledge to yourself like, wow, that wasn't true, or that was unfair. Like you just, whoa, right, okay, and it happens, and like you have the stress response, and then you have all of like the kind of like, like the self, even if you know that you were in the right, you still judge yourself, like you still subconsciously sort of critique yourself and like, whoa, well, was I wrong there, or like was that my fault, or was that fair? But if you're at work or like you're busy, or you come home and you've had a long day, and actually, you know, you've got children, you've got people that need you, like you don't have time to address the thoughts that come up and challenge them, or at least just greet them and acknowledge them, then this sort of creates like the idea of the shadow. So like the repressed parts of ourselves that felt inappropriate for like critical integration, and they become the narrators of your existence. And that's incredibly important to acknowledge, because that means that when we start a journal or when we start to do affirmations, we might start to like argue with ourselves, you know, because if you're coming in all guns blazing and you're going, I am safe, I am beautiful, I am clever, I'm a class A student, and you're just not, and like those things right now, then, or you don't feel, sorry, like you could be those things right now, then that just highlights the distance between who you are and who you want to be. And then you can imagine why it is that we start to come to this conclusion, to this powerful conclusion, that we are incompatible with the cure, because everyone's telling you that affirmation's going to make you feel better, and that journaling's going to clear your mind, and that meditation's going to make you feel zen. But actually, you write affirmations, you feel like shit. You journal and you feel destabilized or embarrassed even, and then you meditate and you just can't do it, and you decide that you're incompatible therefore with the cure, with like these ideas that are supposed to like make you better. Sometimes with journaling especially, the best thing to do isn't to journal when you're feeling unregulated, but to journal after, like go and exercise or go and do something that you know is going to put you in a good state of mind. Vent to a friend and then journal. Journal when you feel relaxed. If journaling feels like opening up a can of worms, then journal when you're in a good headspace. Or journal, just be factual with it, you know? Because like, let's talk about resistance for a moment. Resistance is not necessarily a flaw, and paralysis is not necessarily an indication that you are broken. But it's the nervous system saying that this feels unsafe given past data and years of staying still or conserving your energy, because visibility and exposure felt like there would be consequences. You know, this whole idea of like, get up, do better, try harder. Like, that can feel like an attack, and it can feel like an insult because you're already trying your best. Resistance isn't laziness, it's memory, and you shouldn't argue with your memory. You should listen to what it's trying to say so that you can work with it. Coming to the conclusion that you should, subconsciously coming to conclusions that you should avoid certain interactions, or that you should hide. And that might not look like actually getting under the table and hiding, but if you're feeling so like, just if you're experiencing chronic stress, or if you're experiencing like just being unregulated frequently, like that's not necessarily meaning that you're going to come home after work and hide under the table. That might mean that you hide behind your phone, or that you submerge yourself in alternate realities. Like, I just mean scrolling on Instagram, I'm not trying to be esoteric here, but this might mean that you submerge yourself in alternate states of mind. You know, that you have a drink after work. Coming to the conclusion that therefore there is something wrong with you because you're not working is understandable. And it's not because you're an evil, negative, horrible person. Even if you're not being very kind to yourself right now, it's not. It's just pattern recognition. When I was younger, and I was a teenager, I actually used to exercise in my room with the blinds down so that it was pitch black. And I would like blast music, and I would like, sometimes I would literally close my eyes because like I was insecure and I couldn't do a push-up. I can now, but I couldn't do a push-up. I wasn't very strong, I wasn't very fit, I didn't have very much stamina. And I was just quite like feeble and weak, and I was really embarrassed about that. So, like, exercising just felt like a punch in the gut because I was doing something that was meant to be making me feel better, yet I was met with all of these like criticisms and this general unkindness from myself. Sometimes you're going to set out to do something and it's going to take you on a wild, crazy, like alternate course. Like, you might go to the gym fully intending to hit a leg day, get there and your stomach's churning, you feel anxious, and you're having all these thoughts come up that you really weren't anticipating because you were just wanting to do a leg day. And sometimes life throws curveballs at you like that, you know. Sometimes life brings things to your attention when it's inconvenient. You know, I spoke about this previously in a video, like the idea that sometimes if we don't designate times throughout the week to sit down and address how we feel, or sit down and address the unregulated, like the unintegrated parts of us, like the shadow, then they will come when it suits, aka you lie down, it's quiet, it's dark, and you close your eyes and for a second the world's still and your subconscious comes to you and goes, hi, funny story, so actually I was just wondering if you had a minute. Seems like you've stopped, so I was just wondering if we could talk. I'm not very happy about what happened earlier. And you're thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, like crying out loud, like I just want to go to sleep. Like I've had a long day, it's been a long hard day, whatever, like I just want to go to sleep. And you're like, I sat down to do this earlier and I tried to journal and nothing came up. But you might not have necessarily primed yourself to be ready to journal. And this is what I mean by like sometimes journaling is best to do, and sometimes self-recognition, like through affirmations or journal and a meditation, sometimes it's better to do those things not necessarily as a means to relax, but when you are relaxed as a means of confirmation of integration. Sometimes it's not that it's futile and it's not that you don't work, it's just that maybe you haven't prepared yourself to be able to receive the benefits. Like if you go to school but you haven't slept last night, or you haven't had a good sleep, or you haven't had any breakfast. Like if you go to the gym when you're hungry, you're gonna have a crap workout. Like I've done it so many times where like I've been like, I need to go to the gym, right? I just need to go. And then I get myself in this massive hurry for absolutely no reason. It'll be like a Sunday. And I'm like, right, no, I need to go to the gym. And instead of being like, right, pause, you're a little bit hungry, so by the time you actually get to the gym and start doing the workout, you're gonna be really hungry. Like instead of giving myself the time to prepare, I just think, no, I need to go to the gym, stop making excuses. That's not an excuse, that's reality, okay? Like sometimes there's different options, and like why I'm telling you this is because sometimes when it comes down to journaling or affirmations or meditations or anything that you've been told that's going to make you a better person and feel better, sometimes the real truth and the real value is knowing how to prepare yourself to absorb the most benefit possible. Shifting from the narrative of I don't work to the narrative of I work exactly as designed for what I had to survive is so powerful. Like healing isn't necessarily forcing yourself into systems that weren't built with your history in mind, but considering what is it that your system needs right now. And let this be a permission slip, if anything, to stop arguing with yourself. You sit down and you go to, maybe you've tried affirmations before and you think, nah, it didn't work for me, it didn't make me feel good. Or maybe you've tried meditation before and you're like, I just can't get into it. Or maybe you've tried journaling before and you were like, this just feels really weird and cringe and I don't really see the point. Well, of course you won't if you weren't primed and prepared for it, because a part of the exercise is having the resources ready. It's having, it's like teaching, like a whole part of the preparation of demonstrating a lesson isn't just having the context, isn't just having the information. You've said it all yourself 1,000 times that, oh, they were rubbish, back in high school or whatever, oh, they're not a very good teacher, they're not very good at teaching. And it's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, oh, well, they've got the information and they're telling me the information, but I'm not receiving it and I'm not therefore benefiting from it. So this applies with yourself in day-to-day life, the idea that you can't receive benefits from something that you're not prepared for. I hope that this allows you to come to the consideration and maybe even one day the confirmation that change is possible and that you are not fixed. That perhaps if things that you had been told were going to make you feel better made you feel worse, that does not mean that you are incompatible with the cure, and that does not mean that you cannot receive benefit from them. It just means that perhaps there's a step that you've been missing. The inner critic is not the enemy, but it's a God that didn't get the memo that change has occurred, that change in circumstances has occurred, and therefore it's operating off this rule book that no longer applies. And then you're looking at that and you're saying, I am broken and I don't fit in with the world and I can't engage with help. And I think that that's so debilitating, because then people think that, well, they're stuck, and people think that their state is permanent, and people think that it's impossible for them to grow or impossible for them to change. And then people start, even worse, people start to come up with masks and start coming up with things that are almost pretend change, and they start pretending, and like the whole like fake it till you make it, it's kind of true, and if you tell yourself enough times that you're gonna try your best, like I say with like the neutral affirmations, like if you tell yourself enough that, and you're kind enough to yourself, obviously that does have an impact. But change your expectations from that intervention is going to immediately provide you with relief, with felt relief, to intervention is going to have an effect. You know, as simple as that. That journaling, change your expectations from journaling is going to make me feel better to journaling is going to provide me with a better understanding of what it is that, where I am and what I need. And it's as simple as that, and it can be as neutral and as honest as that. And it should be honest, you know, let yourself come to the conclusion of who you are, where you stand, what you need, slowly. A lot of people find themselves being exposed to online sort of like self-development, self-improvement, or like books or whatever, like workshops, resources, videos. There's a bombardment of information constantly available at you, and therefore there's the expectation that you should have found something by now that works for you, and you should have integrated and you should have mastered it, and you should just be the best person ever. But obviously that's not true, because that's not real, and we can't actually digest that much information all the time, and sometimes we don't even know where to look for it. And sometimes the information that people put out there online, and hell, even I might be one of them, who knows, is wrong. Or not necessarily wrong, but maybe it's not able to be interpreted by you, or maybe it's just not relevant to you. I think a lot of people that receive this kind of advice online or in person or whatever, they don't implement it, not because they don't believe it, but because they don't regard themselves as worthy of implementation. So I think it's got to be less critical, less about there is something wrong with you that you need to deal with, and more about there is this huge potential in you, and you could be so much more than, or so much happier, or so much more honest, or so much more compassionate, or so much more expansive than you currently are. And that's a potential that is worth investigation, and therefore worth taking part within interventions. And hey, if the interventions aren't working, then don't shut it down. Fuck, don't give up. Like, just maybe consider, like, okay, how was it that I prepared myself for this intervention to work? What was the intention, you know, within like teaching, like early years, we think about like the 3 I's, so it's like intent, implementation and impact. Think about that within your day-to-day life. So what's the intent? Okay, so I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do some affirmations. The intent is that, whoa, pause, wait, is it that it's going to make you feel better, or is it that it's going to be used as a prompt to further investigate the belief systems that you have that was stopping you from already agreeing with that point? Because if just simply writing, I am safe, I am clever, I am pretty, I am funny, on paper made it true, then everybody will be everything that they want it to be, but it doesn't. So sit with yourself, and you know, you think about the intent. So you think, sorry, I'm rambling, but I'm trying to get my point out. So you think about the intent, and you think about the fact that, okay, no, my intent is to write down some affirmations with the intent of acknowledging and witnessing the limiting beliefs and the beliefs that come up about myself that have been the block that have prevented me from already agreeing with these points. And that the implementation is going to be right, so I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say it aloud, or I'm going to write it, and then maybe I'm going to write, I am brave, and then I'm going to think, I'm not brave, I'm a coward, and I'm going to think, all right, well, why am I a coward? And write about that, journal about that, god damn, now, wow, look, you're journaling, isn't that crazy? And then, okay, well, the impact is that I'm going to have a better understanding of the honest truth that is me. And that is going to allow me to expand, and that's going to allow me to really live my life to the fullest, because that's worth your time. That is so worth your time. That is so worth your effort and your energy and further investigation. Life could be a dream. Like life, God, not to get all whimsical on you, but it can be bloody good, okay? And if you're going through a hard time right now, life can be so much more than this, and it will. And you are not a failure. You are not incompatible with change. You just need to tune your approach so that you can implement your refined understanding in a way that's more appropriate. So, don't really know what I just said. I always come out of these videos and I'm like, God, what have I said? Did I make any cohesive point? So have a fantastic day, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this. If you found any of this like interesting, or if it resonated, let me know, because obviously I want to have discussions. Like, why are the comments bare? Like, probably because I never post and I'm new, but like, comment, agree with me, disagree with me, let me know why, like, comment, discuss, chat, because I want to build a community that talks about things like this. Because when we don't, I promise I'll shut up in a second, but when we don't communicate with each other, like, we live in such a connected world with the internet, yet we all feel so alone. Like I say, you come home and you hide, and it's not under the kitchen table, it's on your phone behind a screen, and you submerge yourself in alternate realities, and you listen to music, and you think, you distract yourself with reality TV. It leaves us feeling detached, and therefore communication and connecting, making the intention to connect. One of my intentions currently is to connect with people, like-minded people, and just discuss ideas and build honest connections with others. And the way that I'm going to implement that is that I'm going to make YouTube videos, and I'm going to post online, and I'm going to share my thoughts and ideas and be open to discussion of them. And the impact that that is going to have is that someone's going to comment and be like, yeah, I agree with that because this, or oh, that just made me think of this, or actually completely related, but this just sort of jogged this thought in me, like, thanks. Or maybe you're going to be like, I disagree, and this is why, and like, we're going to have a discussion, like, that'd be fantastic. Sorry, I probably seem crazy, because I'm getting really passionate now, but yeah, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and just remember, everything's going to be more than all right.